How's it going, everybody? You know, over the past several months, I've covered many of these free speech rallies. Some of you may have seen my live stream coverage from these events and some of the videos I've put together. And sure enough, there's several more planned. But there's a very controversial event happening in Charlottesville on the 12th called Unite the Right. And this is predominantly alt-right figures. So in the past, we've seen, you know, the alt-light, I guess they call it, people like Lauren Southern, Brittany Pettibone, speaking at some of these events. And they're considered not to be, you know, it's more mainstream Trump support. Now, this Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville is more alt-right, with people like Richard Spencer and Augustus Invictus, and it's considered to be much more white nationalist than Trump supporter. You know, they're calling it Unite the Right, but whether or not any of the alt-light or Trump supporter figures show up, I'm not sure. Many of the people I've spoken with said they're not going to do it. But I'm not here to talk about the specifics of that event. Something interesting happened when the ACLU stepped in to defend the right. So the City of Charlottesville revoked the permit for Unite the Right, saying that they couldn't guarantee the safety of the event. And to an extent, that's not without merit. There's a large Antifa presence planning on showing up, and it's likely we're going to see violence. I mean, we've seen it in many other places before. So there's reason to believe that with this very high-profile event, yeah, we're going to see some violence. Now, the ACLU has stepped in to defend the right, saying that this is a violation of the demonstrators' First Amendment rights. So before I move forward with that, let's go back in time a bit, several months. So you may recall that there was a travel ban or travel restrictions. I mean, there's no real way to define what it is because the left and the right were arguing over whether it was a ban, whether it was just a moratorium for security reasons, or whether it was temporary, and the whole thing was a huge debate. But sure enough, there were reports that several people were detained at certain airports for being from some of these countries that were on this travel list. Now, the result of this was thousands of protesters in every major city at airports and marching through the street, demanding that these people be let in. The ACLU quickly jumped to the defense of the protesters and to those who were detained, saying that you cannot restrict someone from entering this country based on their religion, and that even if you are not a citizen, the Constitution protects your civil liberties just as much as a citizen. Now, there were a lot of people on the right who are saying this is not about being Muslim, this is about security issues, and that the Obama administration had outlined these countries as being problematic, and the ACLU is arguing the wrong thing. And there were certainly a lot of people on the right who were very angry with the ACLU, and they still are, saying that they push progressive ideology and have more recently tweeted out support for people like Linda Sarsour. So sure enough, at that time, the right was particularly angry with the stance the ACLU took. Now, the ACLU is the American Civil Liberties Union. That means they protect people's civil liberties. It doesn't matter if you're left or right, if you're a literal neo-Nazi or a far-left progressive, if you want to exercise your rights, the ACLU will make sure that the government doesn't step on your toes or stop you from doing it. This one weekend where the ACLU vowed to fight the travel restrictions, they saw an influx of over $24 million from mostly first-time donors. More money in that weekend than they had raised in the entire year of 2015. And in response to this, the executive director of the ACLU, Anthony Romero, said, "The response from the public has been remarkable. It clearly shows that people are exercised over the proposed policies of Donald Trump. That is the Trump effect. Those 400,000 people who donated to us, I did not go after them. They came to us. In fact, our website crashed. We had so many donations, we could not handle it." Now, with this many progressives donating to the ACLU, what do you think the response was when the ACLU announced that they would be defending the First Amendment rights of the alt-right, of white nationalists? I think the response would be fairly obvious. Twitter erupted with people angry that the money they were giving to the ACLU was going to defend the free speech rights of white nationalists. We've got one tweet where someone says, "I want my $2,500 back I gave during the unconstitutional Muslim ban seriously." One person says, "Virginia ACLU is officially representing the Charlottesville neo-Nazis' speech rights now." And another person said, "I care how the money I donate to the ACLU is spent. And it's shameful it's spent to defend Nazis when Nazis are literally killing people daily. So look, you get it. There's way more tweets. But these people are furious that the money they gave to the ACLU is being used to represent their political opponents. Because I don't think many people really understand the idea of civil liberties. And I hate to say it because I don't want to sound partisan, but it tends to be the far left progressives. Although many people on the right did condemn the ACLU for fighting the travel ban, right now we tend to see more people on the right saying, I will defend free speech rights even for those who I disagree with. In fact, at one of the free speech rallies in Berkeley, a woman who came up was asked, was she a Donald Trump supporter? She wanted to speak, and she said no. And this big, huge guy stands up and he's like, no, this is a free speech rally. She can speak if she wants to. And they let her speak. Of course, it's not absolute. There are many people on the right who want to silence the left, and a lot of people on the left who want to silence the right. But it is the left that predominantly holds the view that hate speech is not free speech. But wait, it doesn't end there. Because additionally, we're hearing that the ACLU is also defending Milo Yiannopoulos. Milo bought ads on the transit system in Washington, D.C. And after many complaints, Washington, D.C. pulled the ads and gave Milo a refund. The ACLU said that you can't decide that you're not going to host advertisements simply because some people are complaining. In fact, the ACLU tried to have the First Amendment as an advertisement for the ACLU on Washington, D.C. Transit, and that was also rejected. What the Washington Transit was saying is that they don't want to host things that are necessarily going to sway public opinion in terms of politics, right? But look, we're talking about the First Amendment, one of the strongest components of our Constitution, of our Bill of Rights. It makes up the foundation of our country. The freedom of the press and the freedom of expression was not allowed to be placed on advertisements out of fear of offending the public. So, you know, I am not surprised to see so many people outraged that the ACLU is actually going to defend all sides of the political debate. And that's why I have a lot of respect for the ACLU, and I always have. Because their issue is not whether or not a political idea is wrong. They're talking just about, look, if today we decide that some things are not allowed to be said, there will come a time when what you want to say is also not allowed to be said. And I've said this a million times, and I think it's worth repeating, that if we ever give someone the power to dictate what is not allowed to be spoken about, then they will likely use that to empower themselves, empower their friends and their families, and push an ideology that won't be the actual will of the people. And right now, the will of the people is seriously fractured. It seems like the divide is getting crazier and crazier every single day. What scares me the most out of all of this, out of everything we've seen with this cultural civil war, with what's going on now with Unite the Right, with the travel ban, with the ACLU, is that there is one thing that is, for the most part, true. And it's not any of these right-wing politics or any of these left-wing politics. It's that we will be in a much worse off place. Life will get dramatically worse for everyone if we aren't allowed to freely exchange ideas. And sometimes those ideas are going to suck. Sometimes those ideas are going to be really great. Oftentimes, these ideas are going to be hated by 99% of the world. But those ideas have to come to light. That means we have to deal with white nationalists holding a rally in Charlottesville. And it means we have to hear from far left progressives when they complain about racism and sexism and bigotry. These are important things. Think about the establishment of the 1950s. Think about movies or songs that would be considered homophobic, transphobic, racist, or sexist today. Think about marijuana legalization, which is happening rapidly. We become significantly more free to do what we want to do when we're able to explore and share ideas. And oftentimes, when there's an idea that causes harm, that causes pain, we don't like pain. We move away from it. So the argument has been made often, whether or not sunlight is truly the best disinfectant. And although it is an argument, one thing can be certain. If we're going to keep moving away from things that are painful and move towards things that make us feel good, there is a good likelihood that we will become more free, more compassionate, more accepting. And it's the shutting down of speech and the shutting down of ideas which is going to make people more angry and hateful. When people don't know what's going on, when news organizations mischaracterize what's happening, then people get the wrong idea about what's happening and they call a Trump supporter a Nazi. There are actual neo-Nazi events in this country. There are actually people who have swastikas tattooed on themselves. You can call them neo-Nazis because that's what they are. But you can't just label everyone on the right a Nazi. You can't call everyone who disagrees with your social justice policies a white supremacist. But these are the things we see when speech is stifled, when expression is stifled, when people are scared of social stigma so they don't speak up, when people are scared of being ostracized, they won't speak up, or when activists on the far left demand that advertisers be removed from specific content and certain speech is disincentivized, demonetized. We move towards a world where certain ideas disappear and it becomes harder and harder to make changes. And that's what's dangerous. We need to be open to change, but we need to make sure that we're not just going to change for the sake of change. We need to hear good ideas. We need to say, are these ideas worth doing, implementing? And then we do them. And sometimes we'll hear bad ideas, and unfortunately, yeah, the bad ideas will get implemented as well. But I think that we tend to move uphill, and we're going to move away from the bad ideas. And if we just keep trying different ways of doing things, eventually all the bad stuff sinks to the bottom and the good stuff rises to the top. At least, that's what I hope. What do I know? This is just my opinion, so let me know what you think. Comment below. How do you feel about the ACLU? That's the big question aside from my big rant on free expression. I think the ACLU does a lot of good work. I don't think they're absolutely perfect. I don't think they're the greatest thing since, sliced bread, but I really do appreciate them and think we're better off with them than without them. So again, comment below. If you like the video, click the like button. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram @TimCast. If you want to support the work that I do, you can go to timcast.com/donate. Give whatever you'd like or give nothing at all. My videos will always be free and available every single day at 4 p.m. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you then.